In this series of videos, which rely on William Bennett's essential book, Our Sacred Honor, we will explore the thoughts of our founders, some of the most insightful men and women who ever walked our nation. Their learning, their passion, and their sense of honor shine through in their own words. In their advice for our nation, there is a vision of greatness and dedication to high purpose. Their words aim high, they instruct and inspire. We can see both our heritage and our basic civic obligations to keep our country safe, hold its purpose high, and maintain the Republic. But how are we to do so? It is famously recorded that upon the conclusion of the Constitutional Convention in 1787, a certain Mrs. Powell of Philadelphia asked Benjamin Franklin, "Well, doctor, what have you given us, a republic or a monarchy?" "A republic, if you can keep it," replied the doctor. Unfortunately, Franklin's challenge is little pondered today. And to the extent that it is, we answer that our political system is a machine that will go of itself, powered by such mechanisms as the separation of powers, federalism, checks and balances, free elections, and so on. And to some extent, it does work this way, which was part of the founders' plan. They believed that institutional arrangements would be central to the success of a modern republic, and Americans are rightly proud to possess the world's longest-lasting and most imitated written political document, the United States Constitution. Yet even with such extraordinary political instruments and institutions, the founders were aware that the American Republic would not, over the long haul, be so easily maintained. From their study of history, the founders had learned of the travails of republics before this one, how the republics of old had, in time, been destroyed by convulsions and upheavals, by vice and decadence. And from their study of human nature, they became acutely aware of man's self-interestedness and his selfishness, designing America's political institutions to take these into account. Chris Kobach, a law professor at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, refers to the limiting powers enumerated in our Constitution as a cage containing the beast. The authors concluded that while such institutional supports were absolutely necessary and could do much to rechannel and curb individual selfishness and discourage political convulsions, something more would be needed if the Republic was to survive. As John Adams put it, human passions, unbridled by morality and religion, would break the strongest cords of our Constitution as a whale goes through a net. The gritty and noble work of securing the Republic would, in the final analysis, have to be done by individuals of sturdy character. Only a people possessing the right dispositions, morals, and strong but tempered religious beliefs would be able to keep what the founders had bequeathed to them in 1776. In other words, the arduous task of sustaining the American Republic would fall upon us, upon you and me, upon the millions yet unborn, as Washington then put it. The question of how to secure the Republic is then the question of what sort of people we must be. This is why we have chosen to offer this series of videos to the American public on the founders' vision of the virtues that they believed necessary for sustaining the American experiment. It's necessary for each generation of Americans to learn and practice those virtues. As Abraham Lincoln warned, the great deeds and virtues of the founding generation grow more and more dim by the lapse of time. How can Americans fully know this country and themselves without knowing at least a little about the men and women who pledged and risked their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor for the blessings of liberty we enjoy today? Thus, to understand this, we will review some of the private letters and public addresses of the founders to bring to light once again their answers and their insights. My aim is to share with Americans the private and public reflections of the founding generation on what we must do to rekindle the visionary enlightenment that inspired the founding American generation. The following letter, written by Benjamin Rush to John Adams, is being read from William Bennett's book, Our Sacred Honor. The 4th of July has been celebrated in Philadelphia in a manner I expected. The military men ran away with all the glory of the day. Scarcely a word was said of the solicitude and labors and fears and sorrows and sleepless nights of the men who projected, proposed, defended, and signed the Declaration of Independence. Do you recollect your memorable speech upon the day on which the vote was taken? Do you recollect the pensive and awful silence which pervaded the House when we were called up one after another to the table of the President of Congress to sign what was believed by many at the time to be our own death warrants? The silence and gloom of the morning were interrupted, I well recollect, only for a moment, by Colonel Harrison of Virginia, who said to Mr. Gerry at the table, "I shall have a great advantage over you, Mr. Gerry, when we are all hung for what we are now doing. From the size and weight of my body, I shall die in a few minutes, but from the lightness of your body, you will dance in the air an hour or two before you are dead." This speech procured a transient smile, but it was soon succeeded by the solemnity with which the whole business was conducted. I don't know how many of us appreciate the grave risk taken by the signers of the Declaration of Independence. This might be because some of the signers bravely laughed in the face of danger. While writing his bold and now famous signature, John Hancock, the first to sign, reportedly said, "There, His Majesty can now read my name without glasses, and he can double the reward on my head." To encourage solidarity, Hancock later told the delegates who were preparing to sign the document that they must all hang together, to which Benjamin Franklin supposedly quipped, "We must all hang together or we will most assuredly hang separately." What kind of men were the 56 signers who adopted the Declaration of Independence, and who by their signing committed an act of treason against the Crown? To each of you, the names Franklin, Adams, Hancock, and Jefferson are almost as familiar as household words. Most of us, however, know nothing of the other signers. Who were they? What happened to them? Ben Franklin was the only really old man. 18 signers were under the age of 40. 3 were in their 20s. Of the 56 total, almost half, 24, were judges and lawyers. 11 were merchants, 9 were landowners and farmers, and the remaining 12 were doctors, ministers, and politicians. Even before the list of signers was published, the British marked down every member of Congress suspected of having put his name to this treason. All of them became the objects of vicious manhunts. Some were taken. Some, like Jefferson, had narrow escapes. All who had property or families near British strongholds suffered. Of those 56 who signed the Declaration of Independence, 9 died of wounds or hardships during the war. 5 were captured and imprisoned, in each case with brutal treatment. Several lost their wives, sons, or entire families. One lost his 13 children. 2 wives were brutally treated. All were at one time or another the victims of manhunts and driven from their homes. 12 of the signers had their homes completely burned. 17 lost everything they owned, yet not one defected or went back on his pledged word. Their honor and the nation they sacrificed so much to create is still intact. The 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence proved by their every deed that they made no idle boast when they composed the most magnificent curtain line in history. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.